Now, before we start the video, got a couple things I gotta say. Don't worry, nothing bad. Papa ain't angry. Number one, yeah, we'll be having more gear talks. I have been getting nothing but comments for more gear talks. Trust me, they're happening. I've been busy. I'm getting a little less busy. I can do things a lot more often I can now. Number two, yes, I do not have hair anymore. As you can see, it is gone. Let's make it short and sweet. I stated in the Dark Souls videos for the Let's Plays, when I first started them, I was not going to cut my hair till I finished. My hair has now been cut. That is because it got long enough I could donate it to Wigs for Kids. I'm going to leave info for that below. And I just got to the point where I'm like, I got to get it cut. It's getting in my way. I had a free moment to do it last week, so I did it. It's gone now. I'm sorry for everyone who will miss it. It'll grow back. I very much promise you. But we have a gear talk to get to. I am behind. I got to finish up the Hivebuster series, and I am like only maybe a third of the way. I think I'm only a quarter of the way through. So today we're talking about the Wakaatu. That's right, the giant apex predator bird of death that we find in the Hivebusters DLC. First time we ever meet it, and honestly, it's a really interesting creature, and I'm happy they introduced something like that, and they also added it as an enemy for multiplayer. I really like the steps they took in that one. It was a really good idea. The enemy type is nice. I enjoy it at least. And really, it's hard to talk about because we only got in the DLC. We don't know a bunch of the history of the creature, just the history of like its mythology, because it's a real creature, but everyone thought it was a myth. So I'm going to try and spin it of like what it is. We already see what it is and we know what it is, but kind of more information by just the appearance. And I'm going to try going Roanoke Gaming on this if I can. Sorry, Roanoke. I'm going to give it a shot and try and go around and look at this thing. So today we're talking about the Wakaatu. Let's get into it. Now, in order to make sure I got this, I had to memorize some things down, like Pahanu and Walahi for the islands, because my memory is horrible and I would forget them easy. Instead of the Walahan people, I'm just going to call them the Walahi tribe because it's just easier for me. I'm sitting crooked on my couch right now because the center is broken and it feels like I'm sitting on a block. So I'm sorry if I'm sitting crooked, but that's the best I can do. So starting off talking about the Wakaatu. This is the apex predator of the Southern Islands, mainly on, again, Pahanu. I almost call it Pahani. Pahanu. And this was the creature that the Walahan tribe knew very well, and they would go through and do rites for and send their young to go through their rite of passage, kind of. Now, it gets a little tricky. The Walahan people to Pahanu, here's the thing. Originally, the Walahi tribe was on Pahanu. They were the Pahanu people, and after a while, it was like generations and generations ago, they left and they went to Walahi. Everyone got all their stuff up, got on the boats, and went on over. They went to Walahi, and they would still send people over and bring them back as their rite of passage. Now, after a while, they chose not to do this anymore because they thought the bird was just a myth at this point. No one had seen it in so long. The rite was starting to just leave the idea of people doing it, and it just didn't happen anymore. So this thing was stuck on Pahanu. Not stuck, it lives there. It lived on Pahanu. People were on Walahi. There was no more coming back and forth. That's just how it ended up being. Which was great for the Wakaatu, because the Wakaatu, apex predator, you go into its territory, it just kills you. So I'm going to try going through kind of what it is first. So the Wakaatu, again, an apex predator. It's roughly like 20 to 30 feet long. It's a very big bird, if you want to call. I'm pretty sure a bird is the best way to call it. It's death. This thing is death. We've seen the bones of the things that lived on Pahanu and Walahi too, and they're just giant, huge creatures, and they're just dead. The Wakaatu is still around. It's very obvious this thing is the top of the food chain, and it's probably killed all these big things. And it's stated there's more than one. It's not just the one we meet that we deal with. No, there are more Wakaatu out there. We don't know where, but the one on Pahanu, we were in its territory. Wherever else it is, the others are, they probably have territories of their own. So we deal with this giant bird. It has 3 tails that look like tendrils. As far as I can tell, they mostly work as tails. I did some research into everything I could for the physiology of this creature. It seems like its tails are just tails. I don't think they use them as weapons as much as I would believe. They have like the feet of a parrot. This thing has a culmination of a bunch of creatures. It has a horn. It's got a pretty much like the beak of a, not a parrot, but a heavy duty beak that's pretty much made for like snipping through things. It has all of these acid sacs on its face, roughly 6 of them. It's a 6-winged creature to fly, and it flies. They say pretty much like it has the, I want to say the metabolism of a hummingbird, so it like constantly needs to eat, which I can believe because of all the death and destruction we see this thing leaving. So this thing, this apex predator, is going around and just murdering what it can to eat. It's not just doing it to kill, it needs to eat. And it is stated anything that is not a Wakaatu, and even the Wakaatu, it can be 50-50 if they're trying to impede on its territory, but anything that is not Wakaatu is going to get killed in its territory, period. And the Wakaatu, if it's like a rival male or something, then it's probably going to end up in a fight with the territory it ends up with the alpha there. So that's like the best I can say with how it looks. Again, we only learn about it in this DLC. It's not like we learned about it somewhere else. Also, its feathers. This thing has a ton of feathers, and these feathers, and we'll get into the acid itself that it shoots. Its feathers release a hallucinogenic, like, you could say mist off of it that makes you hallucinate. This happens also with its acid, although if you get touched with the actual acid it shoots off itself, that stuff will actually like melt you away into a goo. That'll actually kill you. But if it doesn't hit you and it's just the fumes that get to you, you start to hallucinate, much like Mac, Lonnie, and Keegan. And I played as Mac in my playthrough, so I heard like his dead son Dylan's voice the entire time I went through near that stuff. So you need to watch out for that. Other than that, I can't really get into too much without getting into the story of what happened in the Highbusters DLC and with the Wakaatu. So I guess we'll just do that right now so we can just like get into the rest of everything. I'm just going to position my arm here because it's hard to sit at a weird angle. So going into the story of the Wakaatu, the overview of it and what we learn about it when it first makes its appearance. So it doesn't appear right away for the Hivebusters. This thing appears in the first act or the first chapter. It appears in the first chapter, but it doesn't make a physical appearance until later. When we first meet it, it's rustling through the trees. We're wondering what the big creature is because it's obvious there's something huge around here. And we see that this thing, whatever it is, once they evacuate from the beach, they see this thing is not a fan of anybody. It is shooting off acid. It is killing Swarm left and right. People are dying. Creatures are dying. Everything is being destroyed by this thing. And everyone on the plane, for TAC, for the Highbusters, like, what is this thing and what's going on? Again, it's all on Pahanu. This is on Pahanu itself. So they have no clue what's going on. So as far as we know, at this point in the story, there's this huge creature. We don't know what it looks like, what it's doing, or what it's shooting off. We just know acid is melting things. So it's really weird when you think about the creature itself, because we don't hear again about it in general until after the mission to Sanctuary, when all 3 of Team Scorpio go to lay their first ever Venom Bomb. Now, when we go there, everything fails, everything's horrible, and Mac brings up, and this is after everyone gets back and they're talking to Hana, why don't we just use some of whatever that acid stuff that's getting shot off, the nightmare fuel or nightmare juice that's being shot off, the mist and like all of that. Why don't we just use that? And honestly, Hana's like, you know what? Why don't we? It's powerful. It's killing them. We know it's going to work. So yeah, let's do that. Let's go get some of it and figure out what we can do. The problem is no one knows what this thing is, where it is. They only know it's on Pahanu. At this point, they're not on Pahanu. They're back at the main base over where Hoffman is. They don't know anything about it. So they decide, hey, why don't we go to one of the local clans? I believe it was because Lonnie is originally from the Walehi tribe, or at least her family's descendants of that. At least her grandmother was a part of it. So they decide, what if we go over there and ask what it is? Because I believe at this point, Lonnie states like, oh, this reminds me of the legend of the Wakaatu that her grandmother used to tell her a lot about. Because again, they believe it's a myth at this point. Everyone believes it's a myth. So they go over and they decide, let's take a look into that and see if that is what we're dealing with. Again, I'm paraphrasing a lot of stuff. I played the DLC, but it's been a little while, but I did my research before I started. So they decide to go over to Walehi and go to the Walehi tribe. Again, they used to live on Pahanu. They transferred to Walehi, and they figured they might know what this thing is. So they go there only to learn the swarm's already beaten them to it. They don't know how because they are all coming up in Pahanu, not Walehi. So they all got snatched, and they're trying to figure out, what this thing is. But obviously, we need to help the clan that's here. In the middle of like the festival hall for the clan, they end up seeing this giant statue kind of engraved in it is the legend of the rite of passage kind of. You have to deal with the Wakaatu, and that's the rite. Lonnie reads it off because she's able to read that language thanks to her grandmother, and they learn that the creature that they're somewhat looking at or that fits the description is the Wakaatu. The Wakaatu is, again, at this point, a mythical creature because they don't even know if it's real anymore. Not even the clan. They think it's just a myth. Is a creature that when someone comes of the right of age, they will take their trip over to Pahanu and they will deal with the bird. They will go on their own vision quest. They will go through the ancient ruins and they will go into its nest and they will battle it and come back with a feather to symbolize their victory over the Wakaatu. Now, again, no one thinks it's real anymore. But this is how the story goes. And this is where we get something weird. There is a chamber that has all the feathers of everyone who went through the rite. And all the feathers are in there, which can cause hallucinations. But no one's having hallucinations at this point because of the fact that they figured out a certain incense that can block away the effects of having all these feathers around. Again, though, they don't believe this thing's real, but they have the feathers of this creature everywhere to show there's a physical thing they got from it. As far as I can tell, they just think it's a rite of passage and it's just a bird that's native to Pahanu and it's been generations since anyone's done anything. So maybe that's it. Maybe they just don't believe, like, this is just a bird that's on the island. They went to the island, obviously, got this feather after their spirit trip because they're hallucinating. And they came back believing that they dealt with the Wakaatu. Because, again, they're venomed out of their mind. It's acid, but I'll call it venom for now because you make venom with it. So they're venomed out of their mind just seeing things. So maybe they just think like they're going to spiritually see it instead of actually realistically. And this feather's like a native thing over there. I'm guessing that. So we do that. We get that. We get that information. We get that, the feathers aren't a permanent thing that'll cause hallucinations. Things can hold it back, like the incense. So they learn everything they need to know. At this point, though, because Hana's been with them the whole time when they went here, Hana gets attacked by a snatcher and taken. Obviously a really bad thing, because Hana is kind of cool and chill, and she's Cole's daughter, so Cole's going to be ticked off. They're going to go save their friend. And it's at this point we learn how the swarm are getting back and forth. That's because of the lava tunnels. The lava tunnels that connect from Pahanu to Walehi are just massive, and there's many of them. And that's how the Snatcher's going from Walehi over to Pahanu. So, they track this thing down, they chase it, it's a great follow. They finally get Hana out of there, they lift her out, and during all this, Hana's just like, okay, like, I understand what we need to do, I understand, like, she's kind of having an epiphany while she's, like, recovering or something. It's weird, but Hana's chill, so it's okay. So, now they get her out of there, and now they're getting extracted. But guess what? This lava tunnel leads into the Wakaatu's territory. And the Wakaatu's mighty pissed there's people in its territory. It does not like being followed. So, it attacks the helicopter. So, they have to cut themselves free and go on foot to find a way out of here. And also, they're pretty much on a side note, like, okay, like, let's see what we're up against. And this is where we see the thing, and it is a very monstrous flying thing of death and destruction, and it is by far the scariest thing you will deal with on this island, because everything else it's killed pretty much. So, you're dealing with it, it's shooting off acid, you come across the corpses of everything it's killed, the swarm, carriers are just dead left and right. This thing is killing, like, the strongest thing the Swarm Master offer, it's just dead, just melted away, and you're continuing to run from it, you're continuing to get around, you're continuing to do all of this stuff. It finally gets you cornered, it looks like you're going to die, it's shooting acid, but this is when you finally have the Raven come back up, and with the Raven you also have Tak that's piloting it, and Tak has his own customized one. And then you have Hana on it that's shooting off the gun. She's shooting off the turret on it and just getting it out of there so that you can be safe. Now, after this, we do not see the Wakaatu again until the next chapter, and this is after everyone learns, like, this isn't a sanctioned mission, this isn't COG, this is Hoffman's little project. After this, and the Team Scorpio becomes stronger than ever, the main mission begins of, we know what this thing is, we know where it is, we're going to go and actually get ourselves the acid from this creature to put in the bombs. So, this is where the final act comes together, and they're all three going to challenge the apex predator of the land. Now, we see the landscapes the entire time. These islands are big. They're big islands. So I have no doubt there are other Wakaatu on this island. They go in, and when they're in there, they take the entire trek that they would on the normal rights that the Walayan tribe would use, and they finally get to its nest, which is like near this huge tree. And the fight goes on. This thing's burrowing left and right. The Wakaatu, it's in its home territory. And it's a really nice fight. It goes for a while, and it's a good fight. When they finally defeat it, it goes to the ground. It's not dead, but it's kind of accepted its fate of, like, I'm either dying or I'm getting spared, but there's no way I can keep fighting. They go up to the 6 acid, pretty much like the leaflets that come off its face that hold the acid, and they go up and take a sample and everything. They take their own feathers and state, the Wakaatu's going to live. We're not going to kill it. This was a good fight. Everyone's surviving this. Let's get out of here. And again, they choose not to kill the Wakaatu because the Wakaatu hates everybody that's not a Wakaatu, and it's fighting the swarm. In general, it is killing the swarm off. So the Wakaatu's going around murdering anything in its path, taking out more swarm, and the Highbusters are like, why would we stop this? It's literally doing the job for us. We're not going to jump in and stop this. We just need acid from it. And they bring the acid back to Hana. And Hana I want to believe Hana is smart enough with all of her bioengineering degrees. She understands how to make a synthetic version of this, or an artificial. She at least can put it in the computer, see what makes it tick. And she can probably make copies of, like, the acid itself. Because I don't want to believe they keep going to the thing and fight it just to get more acid than leave. I think she learned how to make a synthetic version of it, or at least like a copy. So that is the last we see of the Wakaatu. He is still alive, he or she. I think it's a he because of the horn. He's still alive. And he's probably, by the look of it, making a full recovery to go and keep kicking more ass against the swarm. So my guess is that's probably going to continue. Now for the future of the Wakaatu, I'm going to assume we're at least going to hear about it again at some point. I mean, with the apex predator, where you get your, like, acid to make the deadliest, like, corrosive bomb there is, I'm going to assume it's going to be mentioned at least in the future, because I don't believe the Highbusters are just going to be done with the series now. I do believe they'll end up in future games at least, and the Wakaatu will be mentioned. I want to believe if we don't see it again, it'll be mentioned, or worst case, it's going to pull, like, a gatekeeper from Samurai Jack, and they're just going to kill it off screen and just be like, yeah, this happened, and we're just going to show it's dead and not really go into it. So I'm going to assume it's going to be mentioned again. I don't think it'll play a big role unless it were to, like, assist the Hivebusters and be like, you defeated me in fair combat. You have shown that you are the true alphas. I will help you. You allowed me to live. I will assist you. That's the best I could see it doing if they took it further. But other than that, that's really the Wakaatu. I like the addition. I like that it's a new design. It's not even like Lambent, Swarm, or Locust related. It is basically what Sera has to offer as like Mother Nature creating its apex predator. And I really like that. It's something different we don't get a lot of. Because like we have Lambency, what was just like a parasite. But this was the first like, I am a creature doing my own thing. I am not controlled by anything. I am my own thing. Which I can really respect because that's the first time we've kind of gotten that. So that'll do it for this video on the Wakaatu. I'm going to try catching up with more videos, get more of the Hivebuster series done. And I think that'll do it. I'll put a poll up to see who will be next after I get the chapter review out after this. So I want to thank you guys for making these videos possible. I want to thank the patrons for making this possible. Thank you all for enjoying and watching the videos. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.